If someone had told me 3 years ago that Rohan Malhotra would one day try to destroy my career, I would have laughed it off. He was my closest friend at work, someone I shared coffees, lunch breaks, and the occasional rant about clients with. We joined Syntelix Solutions, a mid-sized tech consultancy firm in Bangalore, just a month apart. I still remember the day I first met him. I was standing awkwardly in the pantry, trying to figure out the godforsaken coffee machine, when he strolled in with that ridiculous Batman mug and an easy smile. "Need help with that?" he asked, and without waiting for an answer, showed me how to get the machine to stop spitting water everywhere. That was Rohan, helpful, witty, always ready with a sarcastic joke or a solution to your code issue. Over time, we became close. We sat across from each other on the 3rd floor in the DevOps wing. He knew about my breakup with Samir, how I was supporting my mom and little sister back home in Chennai, and even my dream of launching my own digital platform someday. In many ways, he felt like a constant in a life that had very few. We'd grab lunch at that tiny South Indian joint across the street, Rasoy Delight, where the sambar was amazing but the tables were always sticky. We'd talk about everything, bad dates, annoying bosses, office gossip. You know, the kind of friendship that slowly becomes a lifeline? That's what I thought we had. But there were signs, looking back now, that I missed. Like how he'd sometimes talk about climbing the corporate ladder as if it were a war. Or how he hated it when someone else got credit in team meetings, even if they deserved it. Once, our colleague Mira got a shout-out from the VP for fixing a deployment issue, and Rohan sulked for days. Said it was his fix, that she just got there before he could raise it. I brushed it off at the time. Thought he was just being dramatic. We all have our moments, right? He even used to joke that between the two of us, only one could become team lead, and it would definitely be the one who drank black coffee and actually knew what they were doing. I'd laugh. I always laughed. Because I didn't think he meant it. I never saw him as competition. That's what makes betrayal so cruel, doesn't it? It doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the people you let in. And I let Rohan in, completely. So when things started going wrong, when files went missing and fingers started pointing, I never imagined he'd be the one pulling the strings. But I was about to learn just how far someone would go when ambition turns toxic. And this? This is the story of how he tried to break me. And how I made sure he lost everything instead. It started with an email. Subject line, urgent, missing client files. It was from Akhil Menon, our team lead, sent early Monday morning, just as I was walking into the office with a cup of chai and half a mind still in the weekend. Apparently, several key configuration files for one of our US-based clients, Glenford Technologies, had disappeared from the shared project repository. The files weren't just misplaced, they were gone. No version history, no trace. Completely wiped. Now, anyone in DevOps knows the kind of disaster this could cause. Glenford's deployment was scheduled for Wednesday. If we didn't recover the files, we'd miss the deadline, breach the contract, and cost the company locks and penalties, not to mention our reputation. Naturally, panic set in. Our office, normally a chorus of soft keyboard tapping and occasional muttering, suddenly buzzed with whispers, frantic Slack messages, and emergency huddles. IT was called. Audit logs were pulled. Everyone's access was reviewed. At first, I didn't worry. I had backed up most of my parts of the project to a local drive, as a habit. So I quietly restored some of the folders I had worked on and shot a message to Rohan saying, "Looks like someone messed up bad. You okay?" He didn't reply. Then, around noon, I was called into conference room C, the one with the flickering light no one liked using. Akhil was there. So was Deepa, the HR manager. And our senior manager, Sanjay Kapoor. The minute I stepped in and saw their faces, I felt the blood drain from mine. Akhil slid a printout across the table. "We've found unusual activity traced back to your login credentials," he said, voice clipped. Specifically, the deletion logs point to your profile on Friday night. I laughed. I literally laughed, because I thought it had to be a mistake. Friday night? I wasn't even in the office. I was in Koramangala, out having dinner with my college friend Sneha, celebrating her new job. I had pictures, texts, even the bill from Sultans of Spice. But none of that mattered in that moment. What they saw was a log. A timestamp. A digital fingerprint that pointed straight to me. They suspended my access immediately. And as I packed my things in silence under the curious eyes of my coworkers, Rohan finally messaged back. Let me know if you need anything. Just that. No concern. No outrage. No, I've got your back. And that's when something in me shifted. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to clear my name. And I was going to find out who did this. The days that followed were some of the worst of my life. Word spread fast. I could feel it in the way people stopped making eye contact, the way conversations died when I walked into the pantry. Even the new intern, a diffier, who used to ask me for tips on bash scripting, started avoiding me like I had the plague. I wasn't officially fired, but I might as well have been. My laptop was taken. My ID card was disabled. I was told to stay available while the internal inquiry continued, but not to come into the office. I spent the first 2 days trying not to cry, the third trying to make sense of the audit trail, and the fourth trying to get through to Akhil without sounding desperate. And through it all, Rohan? Radio silence. No calls. No texts. Not even a casual "how are you holding up?" Which wouldn't have mattered, except I knew him. I knew how involved he was in everything related to the Glenford project. I also knew he had admin-level access to our servers. Same as me. Only a handful of us did. So if someone had used my credentials remotely, someone had to have access to our shared drive and VPN tokens. And there were only 3 people who could have pulled that off without triggering alerts. Me, Sanjay, and Rohan. I couldn't imagine Sanjay, a man who triple-checks email subject lines, pulling something this messy. But Rohan? The guy who once joked about ghosting teammates in Jira so he could quietly claim their work? Suddenly, every offhand comment, every little smirk from the past few months, played in my mind like warning bells I should have heard. And then came the final blow. I received an email from HR. They were formally recommending termination, pending final review. The inquiry team had sufficient evidence linking the breach to my login. They hadn't even checked if my VPN was accessed from my actual location. They just wanted to close the case and move on. And somewhere, I imagined Rohan, sitting at his desk, sipping from that stupid Batman mug, pretending none of this had anything to do with him. That's when I knew. He wasn't just letting me fall. He pushed me. But if he thought I'd go quietly, he didn't know me at all. After that HR email, I gave myself 1 day. 1 day to cry, binge ice cream, scream into a pillow, whatever helped me feel human again. But the next morning, I woke up, tied my hair back, and decided I was done playing defense. If they weren't going to find the truth, I would. The first thing I did was revisit my own system logs. Thankfully, I still had my personal laptop, which I'd use to occasionally mirror files from the office network for emergencies, always within policy. I remembered something. On the night the files were supposedly deleted, Friday at 10:46 p.m., according to the audit report, I wasn't just out with Sneha. I had left my company-issued laptop at work. I texted Sneha. "Do you still have the pictures from that night?" She replied almost immediately with a screenshot of a photo posted on her Insta story, timestamped 10:48 p.m., showing me mid-bite into a butter naan at Sultans of Spice. That alone wouldn't prove anything. But it was something. Next, I reached out to Ankur, a junior IT analyst I'd helped during his onboarding last year. He owed me a favor. I asked him, hypothetically, if someone could clone a colleague's access credentials and log in from a different machine using shared tokens. His answer? Technically yes, but only if they had access to both the tokens and the company laptop or the remote desktop login. Those logs live on the server though, IT would have them. That's when it clicked. If someone used my credentials, there had to be a device log, an IP address or a MAC address from wherever the deletion took place. I filed a request under the employee grievance policy, asking for an independent review of the access logs, not just mine, but all admin-level logins around the time of the breach. At first, HR brushed it off, saying the matter was already settled. But I knew the law. And I reminded them, gently but firmly, that if they proceeded with termination without reviewing all the technical evidence, I'd have grounds for wrongful dismissal and a criminal complaint under Section 66 of the IT Act. That got their attention. 2 days later, I got a call from Deepa in HR. "We're reopening the case," she said, her tone unreadable. "There are discrepancies." Discrepancies. That was the first crack in Rohan's carefully constructed lie. And I was going to pry it wide open. The thing about people like Rohan? They're smart. But they always think they're the smartest in the room. They never plan for the person they betray to fight back. When the IT team finally agreed to pull the server access logs, I pored over every single entry, night and day. And there it was, hidden in the details. The deletion had been done using my login credentials, yes, but from an unrecognized machine ID, logged into the VPN from an IP address in Whitefield. Problem was, I lived in Indiranagar. And I hadn't been anywhere near Whitefield in weeks. But you know who did live there? Rohan Malhotra. Still, that wasn't enough. Coincidence could be argued. Mistakes could be made. I needed something irrefutable. And then, I remembered our project communication logs, our internal Slack chats. I requested a time-stamped export from IT, citing evidence review. That's when I struck gold. While the deletion happened at 10:46 p.m. A message had been sent from Rohan to our shared DevOps group at 10:48, asking, "Hey, has anyone backed up the Glenford configs? Just realized we might have missed something." It looked casual, innocent even. But combined with the timing? It reeked of someone planting an alibi. Like he knew something had gone missing. Because he was the one who deleted it. The final piece came when I remembered something seemingly minor. Weeks earlier, during a coffee break, Rohan had casually borrowed my security token for a quick deployment check. It was a weird request at the time, but I was distracted, on a call, and I handed it over without thinking. It made sense now. He'd copied the token, cloned my access, and used it later to frame me. I gathered everything, logs, screenshots, Slack messages, the IP trace, and even a digital forensic breakdown I paid a freelancer online to compile. Then I walked into HR with it all printed, organized, and highlighted like a lawyer presenting their case. Deepa sat in silence for 10 full minutes reading through it. When she looked up, her face was pale. "We'll escalate this immediately," she said. She didn't apologize. But she didn't have to. Because in that moment, I knew. Rohan was finished. It took exactly 6 days for the full storm to hit. 6 days after I handed in the evidence, I got a call from Sanjay Kapoor, the senior manager who had barely looked me in the eye during my suspension. "Can you come in tomorrow at 10 a.m.? HR and the compliance team will be present." No explanation. No tone. Just that. I barely slept that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I was finally about to watch the house of cards Rohan built come crashing down. When I walked into the conference room that morning, the atmosphere was ice cold. Sanjay was seated at the head of the table. Next to him was Deepa from HR, and beside her sat Girish Arora, the head of internal security, a man I had never even spoken to before. Rohan was already there, casual as ever, sipping coffee like it was just another day at work. He gave me a nod. A smug little grin. God, that grin. Then Sanjay spoke. We've reviewed the evidence you submitted, and the findings from our security audit have confirmed a breach, one that was intentionally masked using cloned credentials and remote access manipulation. Rohan's smile faltered. Sanjay continued, reading from a document. We have IP trace logs confirming unauthorized access from your registered home network. Internal messages indicating premeditation. And a copy of the cloned access token used to impersonate Ms. Iyer's account. He paused. Do you have anything to say for yourself, Rohan? There was a full 10 seconds of silence before Rohan muttered, this is insane. This could have been faked. She clearly has a vendetta. But his voice cracked. Girish leaned forward. We also recovered the deleted config files from a hidden directory on your company-issued laptop, Rohan. They were never lost. You just moved them. Modified timestamps and all. And that was it. No dramatic outburst. No fight. Just a pale, quiet, word spread faster than wildfire. By the afternoon, every desk knew. Every Slack channel buzzed. And for once, no one looked away when I walked past. They looked at me with respect, with embarrassment, maybe even guilt. The guy who once controlled the narrative was now being escorted out by security, carrying a cardboard box and refusing to meet anyone's eyes. But it didn't stop there. I later learned that the company filed a formal complaint under the Information Technology Act, Sections 66C and 66D, for identity theft and impersonation. He was barred from applying at any of our affiliate firms for 5 years. His LinkedIn went dark. His WhatsApp last seen vanished. He disappeared from every tech group we were in. A few weeks later, someone forwarded me a resume he'd sent to a mutual contact, under a different name, but the same skill set, same projects, and a glaring gap in his timeline. He was trying to start over. And I didn't stop him. I didn't need to. Because Rohan didn't just lose his job. He lost his reputation. His credibility. The comfort of thinking he was untouchable. I won't pretend I walked away without scars. Those weeks took a toll. I lost sleep, confidence, and faith in people I once trusted. But I also gained something more powerful. A voice. A spine. And a story that reminded me never to doubt myself again. People talk about karma like it's some cosmic force that takes decades to catch up. But sometimes karma wears a badge. And carries a folder full of receipts. It's been 9 months since that day in the boardroom. 9 months since I walked out of that building with my head held high, not because I'd won, but because I'd survived. You don't come out of something like that unchanged. For weeks after, I kept expecting another accusation, another betrayal hiding around the corner. I'd reread emails twice, hesitate before clicking send, and watch my own words like they were evidence in a trial. But healing isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's in the small moments, the first time a teammate says, "We trust your judgment." The first project handed to you without a second guess. The first time you laugh in a meeting and it feels genuine again. I was offered a promotion 3 months later. Team lead, security and risk operations. The irony wasn't lost on me. I accepted it, but on my terms. I asked for clearer escalation protocols, more transparent investigation procedures, and employee representation in ethics reviews. And to my surprise, they listened. Because when someone's been through the fire, they know how to spot the sparks. What I learned. I used to think integrity was enough. That if you kept your head down, worked hard, and treated people kindly, you'd be protected from the worst. But the truth? Sometimes the worst comes from people you sat next to every day. People who smiled at you. Laughed at your jokes. And still held the knife behind their back. That doesn't mean we stop being kind. It means we stop being blind. It means we speak up, even when our voice shakes. It means we keep records, ask questions, and know our worth even when others try to bury it. Do I hate Rohan? No. He's not worth the space in my heart. What he did said more about his character than mine. But I will always be grateful to myself. For not breaking. For not staying silent. For fighting, even when no one believed me. This wasn't just about proving I was innocent. It was about proving that no one gets to write my story but me. So if you've ever been lied about, pushed down, made to feel like you don't belong, let this be your reminder. You are stronger than you know. And when the truth finally rises, it's louder than any lie.